I am the male lead's ill-fated white Moonlight, just returned from abroad. 3 months ago, I waited in vain for my leading man, Qin Shaochuan, at our engagement party. After drinking myself into a stupor, I finally realized this world is actually a book. Qin Shaochuan is the male lead of the story, but I am not his heroine. After learning that this is a book, and that I am not Qin Shaochuan's true love, I was finally able to let him go completely. On the day of the engagement party, Qin Shaochuan was absent without reason. I called him 26 times, but no one ever picked up. I wore a gown handcrafted by a top overseas design team, fixed a perfectly curved smile on my face, and walked toward the ceremonial stage. The setup was exquisite in romantic pink hydrangeas and white roses, air freighted from abroad just that morning, were arranged into a heart-shaped floral wall. After finishing the stage, the staff couldn't stop gushing about what a perfect match Qin Shaochuan and I were, saying Jiang City hadn't seen such a grand engagement ceremony in decades. Now, the embarrassment I've suffered is equally grand. Standing before the floral wall, I face the guests' hushed whispers and the media's cameras alone. The Qin and Yi families are both wealthy dynasties in Jiang City, each with assets exceeding tens of billions. The news of the marriage alliance between the Qin heir and the Yi family's eldest daughter had already dominated headlines. By doing this, Qin Shaochuan wasn't just humiliating me, he was slapping the entire Yi family in the face. Dear guests, I sincerely apologize. Due to unforeseen circumstances, today's banquet cannot proceed as scheduled. I looked directly into the cameras, my smile remaining poised as the guests gradually dispersed. The elders of both families could no longer maintain their composure. Uncle Qin slammed the table hard, that unfilial son after all these years. I still don't know what he's so stubborn about. Olji, our Qin family has wronged yours. My parents' expressions turned even uglier. They didn't even bother with pleasantries, and Qin remained gentle and dignified. Shaochuan has truly mistreated Shishi. Once we find him, we will certainly come to apologize properly. I smiled just as gently and dignifiedly. It's all right. Perhaps Shaochuan really encountered something unexpected. What could possibly happen to him? Uncle Qin retorted sharply. My heart ached. Yes. What could happen to Qin Shaochuan? He's a successor of the Qin group, someone who can practically do as he pleases in Jiang City. Who would dare trouble Qin Shaochuan today, and risk offending both the Qin and Yi families? After our family returned to the villa, the atmosphere remained heavy. My mother sobbed quietly. What's happened to Shaochuan? How could he change like this? Watching my mother's tears, my heart broke. She had always adored Qin Shaochuan. Like a mother-in-law doting on her future son-in-law, the more she saw him, the fonder she grew. Today, she was truly heartbroken. I told you long ago that Qin Shaochuan was no good, that you shouldn't marry him. But you wouldn't listen. Yijin's tone was impatient, his irritation palpable. Yijin is my younger brother. He and Qin Shaochuan have never gotten along. When he heard I was engaged to Qin Shaochuan, he objected the most fiercely. My nose stung and my throat felt choked. After a long silence, my father finally spoke. Shishi, do you still want to go through with this engagement? Yes, I replied, as resolute as ever. I deceived myself, pretending not to see the worry and sorrow in my parents' and brother's eyes, even pretending not to see my own heart shattered into pieces. The gloom hanging over our home was because of me. Feeling suffocated, I just wanted to escape. I'll go look for Shaochuan, I said, fleeing the house like a deserter. But if Qin Shaochuan wanted to hide, how could I possibly find him after driving aimlessly for a couple of hours? I bought some alcohol and returned to my stylishly furnished flat in the city center. Lately, I'd been busy with engagement preparations. The alliance between the Qin and Yi families involved many moving parts, and I had to oversee everything personally for convenience. I had been staying at the Yi family villa. My long unoccupied flat felt cold and desolate. I found a wine glass and poured myself drink after drink. Qin Shaochuan and I had been together for 4 years. I never once pressed him to marry me. But if he didn't want to marry me, why didn't he refuse when both families proposed the engagement? As the alcohol took hold in my drowsy state, I seemed to see the 18-year-old Qin Shaochuan, the one who loved me so passionately. During the summer after his university entrance exams, Qin Shaochuan confessed to me 7 times, each attempt more heartfelt than the last. Unable to resist such fervent pursuit, I finally agreed. Shishi, no. Shishi, I will make you the happiest girlfriend ever. The 18-year-old Qin Shaochuan was all youthful spirit and sincere devotion. He lifted me high, and I felt both sweetness and shyness. From then on, my role in his life shifted from the gentle, considerate girl next door to his beloved, sometimes mischievous girlfriend. Like any girl newly in love, I wanted matching couple outfits and shoes, nightly phone calls with Qin Shaochuan, listening to his unbearably sweet bedtime stories. The 18-year-old Qin Shaochuan was a perfect boyfriend. His chest bag when we went out was filled with things I might need. My usual compact powder, lipstick, cotton swabs, tissues, and umbrella. A thermos as the alcohol churned in my stomach. A sudden flash of white light erupted in my mind. How ridiculous. I was actually a supporting character in a novel. Qin Shaochuan was the male lead of this book, and my role was merely his white moonlight, nothing more. Zhao King was Qin Shaochuan's true heroine. The book described Zhao King as bearing a slight resemblance to me. 3 days after I was stood up at the engagement party, Qin Shaochuan came to my home to apologize and declared he would not marry me. Heartbroken, I went abroad for 2 years. When I returned, I became Qin Shaochuan's white moonlight, while Zhao King was merely the substitute. Most of the novel was devoted to describing how Qin Shaochuan pursued Zhao King through a journey of fiery redemption and how he doted on her after marriage. My 20-year entanglement with Qin Shaochuan was summarized in just a few brief paragraphs in the book. In the story, this white moonlight version of me resented Qin Shaochuan, envied Zhao King, and ultimately made myself into an unwanted, clingy presence. Even the Yi family suffered Qin Shaochuan's retaliation, teetering on the brink of bankruptcy. Sobering up a bit, I laughed until tears streamed from the corners of my eyes. I had seen many sides of Qin Shaochuan, but I never knew he could be so ruthless. The first time I met Qin Shaochuan was when I was 5 at the entrance of the Yi family villa. He was only 2 then. Compared to my 2-year-old brother Yijin, he wasn't as fair or adorably chubby, but Qin Shaochuan's face was like a little angel's, long, curled lashes paired with large, watery eyes. Holding Yijin's white Bichon puppy, he looked innocent and well-behaved. Don't touch my dog. Yijin had always been domineering. Even the cleaning aunt wasn't allowed to touch his toys, let alone this Bichon, his latest favorite. Qin Shaochuan quickly released the puppy and apologized in a small, flustered voice. Sorry. I saw the dog about to run outside. Yijin was born because I wanted a little brother to play with, but Yijin wasn't the brother I had imagined. When I tried to dress him in pretty dresses, he refused. When I asked him to play dolls with me, he fed the doll to the Bichon instead. But that afternoon, I did many things with Qin Shaochuan that I had wanted to do with a younger brother later. Yijin often scowled and called him the little follower. Qin Shaochuan smiled sweetly and innocently. I am Shishiji's little follower, forever. Waking up with a hangover, my head throbbed painfully, but I remembered the novel's content clearly. After splashing cold water on my face in the bathroom, I felt much clearer. Clinging to a last sliver of hope, I called Yijin. Yijin answered quickly. Yeah, what's up? Drying my face with a towel, I kept my tone steady. 4 years ago, did you tell Shaochuan about his background? Yes, Yijin replied, uncharacteristically hesitant, but soon regained his defiant tone. Qin Shaochuan simply doesn't deserve you? I felt utterly weary. A deep sense of powerlessness washed over me, and I sank onto the sofa. So, this really was just a novel after all. The novel stated that not long after Qin Shaochuan and I got together, Yijin found out. He told Qin Shaochuan to stay away from me because Qin Shaochuan wasn't worthy. The reason, Qin Shaochuan was an illegitimate child. Back when I was 5, already old enough to remember, the Qin family next door suddenly brought home their 2-year-old son, Qin Shaochuan. Although Yijin was too young to remember, people within the same social circle knew. They wouldn't say it to Qin Shaochuan's face, but would gossip behind his back, mocking him for recognizing a thief as his mother. The book described how, before starting university, Qin Shaochuan went to find his birth mother only to discover her grave, and Qin had no biological children of her own. By the time she accidentally uncovered the woman her husband was supporting, the child was already 2 years old. Coming from a wealthy family herself, and Qin valued interests over emotions. After giving Qin Shaochuan's birth mother a sum of money, she took Qin Shaochuan into raise. After losing her son, Qin Shaochuan's birth mother gradually descended into madness. Half a year later, she ran a red light and was killed by a truck. When she died, she was still clutching a pillow tightly to her chest. Qin Shaochuan resented Uncle Qin and Aunt Qin. The best revenge against them was to destroy the Qin group, letting their life's work go to waste. And me, the one Qin Shaochuan once deeply loved, resembled Aunt Qin too much. We both came from prominent families, prioritizing interests first, remaining composed even in the face of disaster. I had thought over the past 4 years that Qin Shaochuan was simply going through a rebellious phase. I reverted to my role as a gentle older sister next door, tolerating and encouraging him, allowing him to hurt me again and again. But it was all just my own wishful thinking, my self-indulgent martyrdom. Since Qin Shaochuan would eventually find love, why should I remain by his side? After all, being with me would inevitably remind Qin Shaochuan of painful memories. It's almost laughable I regarded Qin Shaochuan as family, as a lover, yet he saw me as an enemy. Well, then, I won't follow the script of the book. As the eldest daughter of the Yi family, I was portrayed in the novel as causing the Yi group to nearly go bankrupt. This time, I will definitely protect the Yi group. 3 days after the engagement party, just as described in the book, Qin Shaochuan came specially to apologize. My parents both wore stern expressions. Yijin didn't even bother showing his face. Looking at the few gray hairs my parents had developed over these past few days, my nose stung sharply. Just how deeply had I loved Qin Shaochuan to make my parents worry so much? I looked at Qin Shaochuan. He hadn't grown up poorly, just transformed from a soft, adorable little angel into a handsome young man with clean-cut features. His facial structure was simply a proportional enlargement. I had been captivated by that face countless times before. But now, looking at it again, it seemed just ordinary. Like countless ordinary people in this world, merely to eyes and a mouth. Not wanting to hear the lines he uttered in the book, I spoke first. Qin Shaochuan, I'll ask you just one question. Did you come to the engagement party that day? Qin Shaochuan's eyes held a complex emotion I could no longer decipher. After a moment's thought, he said, yes. I laughed, tears filling my eyes. What a rare sight, Uncle and Aunt Qin being publicly humiliated. Of course Qin Shaochuan would want to witness it firsthand. It's just that Qin Shaochuan seemed truly blind to how utterly humiliated I was in front of everyone, those hushed, mocking whispers laughing at me for being nothing special, for having a good family background yet still ending up in an arranged marriage, destined for unhappiness. I wiped away my smile, speaking solemnly. Qin Shaochuan, please leave. Our engagement is off. Qin Shaochuan looked at me deeply, then stood up, turned and walked away. No hesitation, no looking back. I announced the cancellation of the engagement. Qin Shaochuan left without a second thought. My parents and brother breathed sighs of relief. My friends practically wanted to set off fireworks in celebration. So, this relationship had long been my obsession alone. The joy of my family and friends felt like a knife, slicing repeatedly at my heart, reminding me over and over how foolish I had been, how utterly unworthy this relationship was. To collect myself, I decided to go abroad for a while. Unlike in the book, where I begged Qin Shaochuan to reconsider the engagement, was refused, and then left in shame to study abroad for 2 years. I simply planned a 2-month trip to Provence. Provence, the honeymoon destination I had secretly chosen in my heart. The sea of purple lavender was as dreamy as my girlish fantasies. Young couples kissed passionately amidst the flowers. I turned my gaze away. Not far off, an elderly couple walked hand in hand. Passing a bench, the old man pulled a handkerchief from his echo bag, carefully spread it on the bench, and only then helped his wife sit down. In that moment, I suddenly felt released. This stubborn chapter of my youth was finally closing. After returning home and disembarking from the plane, the airport was unusually lively, filled with colorful banners and cheering crowds. Zhao King. King, you're the best. King, don't be discouraged. King, sunny dolls will walk the flower road with you. I frowned. According to the book, Zhao King debuted through a talent show 2 years later. Why was it happening now? And what a coincidence, her eliminated group's flight returning just as I arrived. I quickened my pace. Stay away from the male and female leads, or misfortune will follow. I hadn't taken 2 steps before Qin Shaochuan stopped me. Shishi, please sign an artist for me. I frowned. In my final year of university, I had taken over the family's entertainment company. In the book, Qin Shaochuan introduced Zhao King to my company. Because he personally recommended her, I paid her excessive attention. Despite her mediocre acting skills, I always let her pick film and TV scripts first. Later, when I discovered their close relationship, I shifted resources to another actress in the company, and Qin Shaochuan, for love, started his own entertainment company and proceeded to target me in every way possible. Thinking of this, I smiled slightly. Mr. Qin, we are not particularly close now. Please call me Missy from now on. Also, any artist you recommend, I will not accept. Qin Shaochuan's expression didn't change, but his gaze as he looked at me was unusually profound. The next day, hashtags like number Qin Shaochuan Sakang, #Qin Shaochuan chasing, and #Zhao King the boss lady trended on Weibo. The entire internet was shipping Qin Shaochuan and Zhao King. As a couple, the real-life version of a domineering CEO and a sweet innocent girl. I'm a simple soul. I love this. Zhao King is so lucky. She's obviously another resource-privileged star. King is so beautiful yet still works so hard. She deserves this. But gradually, the tone shifted. Some netizens dug up that Zhao King bore a slight resemblance to me. Public sentiment toward Zhao King turned from envy to pity and scorn. Pity that she was merely my shadow, scorn that she was so eager to be a substitute, losing her own identity. In the book, Zhao King was deeply hurt by these substitute comments, setting Qin Shaochuan on his long, arduous journey to win her back. Of course, none of this had anything to do with me. My first action upon seeing the trending search was to drive to Yijin's Esports Club. Oh, finished nursing your heartbreak? Yijin sat in his office, his opening line as sharp as ever. I closed the door and got straight to the point. Dante set your sights on Zhao Qin. In the book, Qin Shaochuan and Zhao Qing's relationship was secret. They could sit at the same table and pretend not to know each other after the trending search when Yijin found out. He very publicly pursued Zhao Qing. Yijin was arguably the biggest obstacle on Qin Shaochuan's path to winning Zhao Qing back. Looking at it this way, Yijin was probably following the cool, aloof second male lead trope. Yijin raised an eyebrow, his tone cool. You tell me not to. So I won't. Aren't you afraid people will call you a sister-obsessed boy again? Yijin was too rebellious. I had to pull out the big guns. Yijin hated being called sister-obsessed. As a child, he'd throw a fit every time he heard it. Now, he didn't throw fits anymore. He just got up and opened the door to usher me out. Don't flatter yourself. And don't try reverse psychology on me. I'm not falling for it. Looking at the firmly closed office door, I couldn't help but smile. There's a charity gala tonight. I don't have an escort. Aren't you coming with me? Yijin didn't remain silent for long. I'll pick you up tonight. When I returned to the company, the receptionist told me Qin Shaochuan had been waiting in the VIP lounge for a while. I was puzzled with the hot search boiling over. Why wasn't Qin Shaochuan comforting Zhao Qing? What was he doing here? In the VIP lounge, Qin Shaochuan was leaning back on the sofa with his eyes closed, looking weary. Hearing me enter, he opened his eyes and looked directly at me. Shishi, Qing is young and new to the industry. Please don't make things difficult for her. I frowned. What do you mean, Mr. Qin, about the hot search? I hope there won't be a second time. Qing is not anyone's substitute. His tone wasn't particularly harsh, but the faint irritation in his words wasn't well concealed. I couldn't help but laugh. So, Qin Shaochuan couldn't console his beloved, lost his common sense, and decided I was behind the hot search. After all these years in Qin Shaochuan's eyes, I, Yishi, was just like Aunt Qin, someone who would bully others using her influence. This messy business about Zhao Qing and me trending, while distasteful to me, actually gave the Yi Group stocks a significant boost. That's why I didn't suppress the hot search. After all, 2 months ago, when Qin Shaochuan inexplicably missed the engagement party, the Yi Group stocks took quite a hit. And I, the one who caused it all, not only failed to try and fix things, but also, for a man I never truly understood, fled like a deserter, abandoning my armor and weapons. Thinking of this, I stopped smiling. Mr. Qin, given our current relationship, I don't think further interaction is appropriate. Let the existing collaborations between the Qin and Yi families run their course until expiration. I saw no need to explain myself to Qin Shaochuan. He no longer deserved any explanations from me. The ##Zhaoqing had barely faded from the hot search for 2 hours. Before #Zhaoqing shot to the top, I was sitting in my trailer, waiting to go on. Tonight's charity gala wasn't entirely private. It included a red carpet walk and a media interview segment. Clicking on the trending topic brought up an interview video of Qin Shaochuan and Zhao Qing. The backdrop clearly this very charity event. Zhao Qing lightly held Qin Shaochuan's arm, smiling brilliantly and innocently. In the video, a reporter first asked Qin Shaochuan, Mr. Qin, we heard you're planning to establish an entertainment company. May we ask what your original intention is? Qin Shaochuan turned his head and looked tenderly at Zhao Qing. The original intention is to safeguard Qing's dreams. The media rushed to congratulate Qin Shaochuan and Zhao Qing on their lasting affection. An opportunistic reporter asked Zhao Qing, Miss Zhao Qing, are you aware of Mr. Qin's former fiancée, Miss Shishi? People say you look somewhat alike. Zhao Qing's face changed slightly, her smile stiffening. Oh, Missy is so beautiful and wealthy. I don't think we look very much alike. Hearing this, my hand involuntarily clenched in my daze. Yijin, sitting beside me, reached over and turned off my phone. Qin Shaochuan's taste is getting worse and worse, Yijin scoffed lightly. How is trash like this even worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as you? Looking at Yijin, who couldn't quite hide his irritation, I composed myself before saying, don't go provoking Zhao Qing. My breakup with Qin Shaochuan wasn't because of her. My momentary lapse wasn't due to how sweet and loving Qin Shaochuan and Zhao Qing appeared. Qin Shaochuan could no longer stir my emotions. I simply hated it when people used the media to make pointed remarks about my looks and wealth. 4 years ago, nearing graduation, I took over the family's entertainment company. Back then, I personally signed a contract with a female idol who had achieved a high ranking in a hugely popular talent show. I poured the company's resources into her without limit. She was also ambitious and quickly became a top-tier celebrity with consistently soaring popularity. What I hadn't anticipated then was that this very popularity would become a double-edged sword, turned against me. When I saw the paparazzi photos of the idol entangled and behaving ambiguously With a notorious playboy from a wealthy family, I was furious. Since her debut, the company had provided her with a luxury apartment, a personal trailer, a top-tier agent, and 3 personal assistants. She had her pick of film scripts and variety shows. What on earth was she thinking? I swallowed my anger and scrambled to do emergency PR for her, only to be stabbed in the back. The idol posted some ambiguous screenshot conversations in her fan group, insinuating that I, as her boss, was using my power and influence to force her to serve that famous playboy. When I first took over the entertainment company, my frequent bold moves had already drawn netizens' attention to me. The new boss, the company's official Weibo comments were flooded with admirers, sisters, beautiful and rich, don't be so strict about gender. With a deafening roar from the heavens, your humble servant makes a dazzling entrance. Sister is so cool. Isn't this my future husband? Don't anyone dare try to steal my husband. On the day one publicly announced signing the idol, her fans filled the official Weibo comments with the most beautiful words praising me. The hashtag Yisha must be a fussball even trended. The company's official Weibo gained countless followers. The idol's fans kept thanking me, grateful for my vision and recognizing how hardworking, diligent, and excellent their idol was. Actually, my judgment was truly poor. The idol I single-handedly promoted chose to let me take the fall the moment she got into trouble. The fighting power of a top star's die-hard fans is formidable. Within half an hour of the chat logs and photos being posted, every major platform was reposting and cursing me as a black-hearted capitalist, saying my very face looked shrewd and mercenary. They cursed me all the way to the top of the trending search list, the kind that costs a fortune to remove. Countless netizens jumped on the bandwagon to curse me. Judging by their fervor, they seemed ready to skin me alive and feast on my flesh. Workers, after all, despise exploiting black-hearted bosses the most. The online farce began affecting my real life. For a while, the company reception refused all express deliveries, fearing they might contain pranks or threats. Rubbing my temples, I worked overtime on emergency PR, handling one crisis after another. It was past 10 p.m. when I finally left work. Outside, rain poured down. Pedestrians were few and hurried. Exhausted, I moved to open my car door. Suddenly, a middle-aged man wearing a mask and hat sprang from a corner, brandishing a knife, swinging it at me. You climbed up using your own face, and now you force our Qin to copy you. Today, I'll carve out that face of yours. Let's see what you used to seduce people then. The man's voice was vicious, his actions deranged, his eyes burning with intense hatred for me. He struck fast and hard. Just as the knife in his hand was about to slash my face, my legs felt like they were filled with lead. I couldn't move, couldn't take a single step. At that critical moment, Qin Shaochuan saved me. Qin Shaochuan just finished his exams, was slightly slimmer than. Without hesitation, he used his own body as a shield, forcefully crashing into the assailant and knocking him to the ground. The knife, unable to stop, sliced deeply into Qin Shaochuan's right forearm. Blood gushed out in torrents. My heart felt like it had been slashed open too, numb with pain. One hand pressed tightly on Qin Shaochuan's bleeding wound, the other trembling as I fumbled in my bag for my phone to call an ambulance. Qin Shaochuan's face was deathly pale, but he forced a smile, saying softly, "Shishi, don't cry." "I'm okay," my throat tightened. So, I was crying. After Qin Shaochuan was bandaged up, he confessed to me for the 7th time, "Shishi, I've grown up. I want to protect you forever, and I have the ability to do so. Can you give me a chance?" Right there in the hospital's private room, Qin Shaochuan's right arm in a sling, a scrape on his chin. The usually proud young master looked rather disheveled, but his eyes were exceptionally bright and determined. At that moment, my heart skipped a beat. It seemed I could no longer find excuses to stop myself. I wanted to be brave for such a sincere young man. Little did I know, not only was my eye for talent poor, but my eye for men wasn't much better either. After officially getting together with Qin Shaochuan, I still had to deal with the idol's mess. I had gathered enough evidence and entrusted a legal team to sue. The idol paid a hefty penalty for breach of contract and was promptly shelved by me. The knife-wielding assailant was sentenced to 3 years in prison. After that storm, however, I became extremely low-key in my dealings. For the past 4 years, apart from the recent engagement incident, I had stayed out of the public eye. I was afraid but not of the piles of threatening couriers or the sudden appearance of attackers. What I feared was the youth's recklessness, the pools of blood, the pale face, and the strained smile. I wasn't afraid that next time, I might not be so lucky. I was afraid that next time, Qin Shaochuan might not be so lucky. I never told Qin Shaochuan that after he was injured, I often had nightmares of a dim underground car park, the cold glint of the knife. In my dreams, what was slashed wasn't Qin Shaochuan's arm, but the neck of the 18-year-old Qin Shaochuan. Vast amounts of blood flooded the entire dream. Every time I woke up, my back was drenched in sweat. Qin Shaochuan knew best how much I hated being in the limelight. He used this preference of mine very well. Now pushing me into the spotlight could both please his new love and serve as revenge against me. The boy who once vowed to protect me forever had become the man in the interview video, looking fondly at another girl as she slighted me. After Yijin and I entered the charity gala venue, perhaps emboldened by their success with Qin Shaochuan and Zhao King, the media grew bold, directing questions at me. Missy, Mr. Qin already has a beauty by his side. May we ask if you have any good news approaching? Netizens say you and Miss Zhao King look alike. What do you think, Missy? My smile was uncharacteristically less reserved this time. Miss Zhao is much prettier than I am. She and Mr. Qin are a perfect match, a talented man and a beautiful woman. I wish them an early arrival of a son. With that, I quickly pulled a grim-faced Jijin towards the inner hall. After all, in the original book, this white Moonlight character lost all intelligence, making trouble left and right, while Yijin, the supporting male character, ate everyone and everything. One dared to cause trouble, the other dared to contradict. These two love-obsessed people nearly drove the Yi group to bankruptcy. Now, I, the love brain, have sobered up. Yijin's love brain still needs saving. So, as Yijin passed by Zhao King, I swiftly steadied the wine glass he accidentally failed to hold properly. Yijin looked startled, even his usually indifferent phoenix eyes widened considerably, as if saying, "How did you know I was going to splash her?" I glared back subtly. We're biological siblings, of course I knew what he was thinking. Yijin had always been tsundere. On the surface, he wouldn't cooperate, refusing to wear dresses, feeding my dolls to the bicken. When I got angry and ignored him, he'd stand beside me, watching me play with Qin Shaochuan, muttering nonstop, "This doll is so ugly, not pretty at all. Only girls play with dolls. Are you a girl? You're just my sister's little follower." I sat sideways to Yijin, but my peripheral vision caught his chubby little hands constantly twisting his clothes. When our grandfather was still alive, he favored Yijin, saying he wanted to build a playground behind the villa for him. Yijin glanced at me and whispered to Grandpa, "Maybe build a princess castle instead." Then he hurriedly added, "Princess castles are pretty." Grandpa was both amused and exasperated. "You really are a sister-obsessed boy." In the book, after Yijin found out about Qin Shaochuan and Zhao King, he very publicly pursued Zhao King precisely because I was still attached to Qin Shaochuan. By taking Zhao King away, he thought I might have a chance. He just didn't expect Zhao King's protagonist aura to be so strong. In his entanglement with Zhao King, Yijin gradually became sync. This time, I didn't linger. Yijin's vicious nature was hard to suppress. Splashing wine, such an ungentlemanly act, was typical of him. But even though I'd stopped the wine from spilling in time, Zhao King started making a scene nearby. Her face wasn't pale enough, her tears lacked aesthetic feeling, but her voice was sufficiently artificial and affected. "Missy, Mr. Qin and I only met a month ago. You two were already broken up by then. You can't publicly humiliate me like this, can you?" The guest fell silent, sneakily watching this cliché drama of two women fighting over one man. I smiled, picked up the glass, and poured the remaining wine over Zhao King's head from above. Gasps erupted around us. Halfway through, Qin Shaochuan reached out to stop me. His face as cold as ice. "Yishi, you were the one who called off the engagement." My smile widened. From Shishi to Shishi, to the full name Yishi, it had only taken 20 years. I slammed the half-full wine glass onto the ground with force. "Qin Shaochuan, don't you know why I called it off? Did I force you into the engagement? You've been keeping Zhao King for years, haven't you?" My voice was calm, but Qin Shaochuan and Zhao King's faces changed instantly. Qin Shaochuan looked both shocked and relieved. Shishi, believe it or not, Zhao King and I were innocent before. I stopped Yijin, who was about to throw a punch, cutting off Qin Shaochuan's defense. "What you do is none of my business." From now on, I raised my voice, addressing the surrounding guests. Anyone who cooperates with the King group need not seek cooperation with the Yi group. Now that I was no longer a love brain, why should I lose to a Qin Shaochuan whose only goal was to wreck the King group? Qin Shaochuan only focused on business for Zhao King's sake. But I had grown up immersed in this world, attentive to every detail, and had long taken over most of the Yi group's companies. So what if I won by taking advantage? I'd take the win. In less than half a year, I snatched 2 major projects from the King group. How major? Major enough that King couldn't sit still anymore and tried to invite me for afternoon tea. After I declined King, I heard even Uncle King got involved, persistently inviting my dad for golf despite being ill. No wonder. Just these 2 projects caused the King group stock to plummet yesterday. The hashtag about King group as President Qin Shaochuan being an illegitimate child stayed at the top of the hot search. All day, I didn't need to guess to know this was Yijin's handiwork again. Over these 6 months, I focused on snatching clients, projects, and resources. while Yixin took charge of tormenting Qin Shaochuan and Zhao Qing online. Yixin even dug up that Qin Shaochuan once scored 17 on a maths test. Zhao Qing was exposed for having a father who was a gambler, an alcoholic and an abuser. Her mother was driven away by the beatings. Logically, with an abusive father, Zhao Qing should be the victim, deserving of netizen sympathy. That's exactly how Zhao Qing's PR team spun it, portraying her as a victim of an extremely unfortunate original family. But while Zhao Qing was playing the victim card in the morning, she was hit with the Imagineer in the afternoon. A neighbor spoke out, saying when Zhao Qing's mother was beaten to a pulp, Zhao Qing sat nearby eating her meal without batting an eye. When Zhao Qing's mother finally found a chance to escape, Zhao Qing, who had come home early, stopped her, almost preventing her from getting away. Netizens were furious. Zhao Qing's career exploded. She was effectively blocked. I stretched and left work, walking through the empty underground parking lot. The click of my high heel sounded particularly crisp. The dull footsteps mixed within were also particularly clear. I quickened my pace. Just as I was about to pull open my car door, someone rushed up and grabbed my wrist. Shishi, it's me, Qin Shaochuan's voice sounded. I froze for a good while before lowering the hand holding my handbag, which I had already raised mid-swing. The Qin Shaochuan before me looked somewhat unfamiliar, not because it had been too long after all. Last month some daring playboy had tried to host a gathering to get me and Qin Shaochuan to call a truce. Shishi, we business people believe in harmony brings wealth. Can't we sit down and talk things through? If we can't be husband and wife, we shouldn't become enemies either. Given how depleted that playboy's family fortune was, I had no intention of getting involved. But his meddling hands reached afar. A few days ago, the Yi Group completed the acquisition of that playboy's family assets. During the process, Qin Shaochuan had tried to get a piece of the pie. Business people believe in harmony brings wealth. What naive nonsense. Pulling my thoughts back, I looked at the Qin Shaochuan before me, his chin sporting dark stubble, and frowned. What do you want? Qin Shaochuan's voice was hoarse and indistinct. He paused, cleared his throat, and continued, Shishi, I am an illegitimate child, I know. Right? Of course you know. But you probably don't know how much I liked you. Since childhood, I only wanted to stick to you. I wanted to be with you from youth to old age. But you were too good. I wasn't worthy of you. They weren't worthy of such a good daughter-in-law either. I almost laughed. Qin Shaochuan, is it so hard to hire a private detective? Under Qin Shaochuan's puzzled gaze, I filled in the part of the story the original book hadn't made clear. Qin Shaochuan's birth mother was a wine seller from a small town. She used tricks to have a one-night stand with a drunk Uncle Qin and subsequently became one of his playthings for a while. Yes, a plaything. Uncle Qin kept countless such playthings. Qin Shaochuan's mother was just one of them. What set her apart was that she got pregnant and went into hiding to give birth to Qin Shaochuan. Reality isn't filled with romantic tropes of runaway wife with a baby is on the run, and the CEO is chasing after them. Upon learning he had been tricked that night, Uncle Qin completely abandoned Qin Shaochuan and his mother after all. There were plenty of other playthings, each different. Qin Shaochuan's first 2 years were difficult. A weak mother and a young child, a perfectly ordinary drop in temperature in winter almost cost Qin Shaochuan his life. In that cramped, dirty rental house, it was Aunt Qin who brought a family doctor and wrestled Qin Shaochuan back from death's door. After some negotiation, Qin Shaochuan's birth mother took a large sum of money and left without looking back. Uncle Qin's health was fundamentally damaged. He could have no more children. Qin Shaochuan was destined to be the Qin Group's sole heir. After years of living it up outside, Qin Shaochuan's birth mother eventually returned to a small town. Next door lived old Zhao, who was raising his daughter Zhao Qing alone after his wife ran away. Day after day, old Zhao sweet-talked Qin Shaochuan's mother into his bed. The good times didn't last. Old Zhao racked up gambling debts. In desperation, Qin Shaochuan's mother gave the remaining money to the debt collectors. Once old Zhao learned she had no money left, he reverted to his nature of alcoholism and domestic violence. Within half a year, he had beaten Qin Shaochuan's mother into madness. As for her final moments, clutching a pillow before being hit by a car, I can't help but maliciously speculate that what she missed maybe wasn't the little boy who nearly died that winter, but the money that could have brought her endless pleasure. After all, in all those years, she never once came to see Qin Shaochuan. I had learned all this after realizing this was a book and hiring a private detective. Upon discovering that Qin Shaochuan had spent time in that small town every year for the past 4 years while lying to me, saying it was for university practical activities, I decided to go abroad and let him go. Qin Shaochuan never saw me as his confidant. He believed the whole world had wronged him, and then proceeded to wrong others in turn. What exactly had I done wrong from start to finish? Yet Qin Shaochuan never even asked, simply sentencing me to death. during our 4 years together. He also enjoyed Zhao Qing's adoration and admiration without the slightest refusal. 4 years ago, when Qin Shaochuan returned to the small town to uncover the truth, Zhao Qing, as a witness, selectively revealed a so-called truth. Old Zhao had just died then. Learning that Zhao Qing was also starting university, a fellow freshman, Qin Shaochuan paid her tuition and living expenses. Zhao Qing fell in love with this savior who fell from the sky. One was eager to please, doing laundry, bringing meals, saving seats, fetching water. The other never refused, pretending ignorance while enjoying a young girl's worship and dependence. Over those 4 years, I hadn't been without suspicion. Why such coincidences? There was always a period each year when I couldn't reach him. When I said I'd visit, he always had excuses. When I suddenly flew to his university city to surprise him, his first reaction was always panic. I had been suspicious, but he was Qin Shaochuan, the Qin Shaochuan who took a knife for me. But the human heart is the most changeable thing. Qin Shaochuan was no longer the teenager whose heart and eyes were filled only with me. I saw Qin Shaochuan again 2 days later. He looked even more disheveled. The stubble from 2 days ago was now a full beard. His eyes couldn't hide their gloom and exhaustion. Seeing me approach, his voice was raspy. Shishi, I'm sorry, an apology is useless. Qin Shaochuan smiled bitterly. We can't go back, right? Why ask when you already know the answer? I glanced at Zhao Qing, fully disguised with a mask and sunglasses not far away, truly not understanding what these two were trying to pull now. To my surprise, Qin Shaochuan didn't press further. He just looked at me deeply, then turned and left. Zhao Qing followed several dozen meters behind him, step by step. A few days later, major media outlets reported one after another that Qin Group president Qin Shaochuan had gone missing, whereabouts unknown for days, and former president Uncle Qin had died suddenly from a cerebral hemorrhage. Qin Group stock almost hit the daily limit down at this critical moment, and Qin stepped up as president of the Qin Group, resolutely cut off the failing parts to survive, preserving the group's core industries. Once the Qin Group's disturbance had passed, and Qin decided to adopt an orphan and invited me to the celebration banquet. The little boy, the guest of honor, seemed somewhat timid after accidentally spilling juice. He became even more at a loss, his eyes reddening. Did you hurt your hand? And Qin crouched down, carefully examining the boy's hands. Mummy, I'm okay, the boy murmured, burying himself in Aunt Qin's embrace. For a moment, I seemed to see the young Qin Shaochuan. Or perhaps I saw the homeless man sitting opposite my company building. Lately, a homeless man had appeared opposite my company. Filthy, his face too dirty to make out. From the shutters of my office, I could see him sitting by a lamppost. The next day, a homeless woman appeared sitting not far from him, gazing stupidly at him.